"We're letting you go, Claire." Vanessa Sterling's voice carried that fake sympathy corporate executives perfected for destroying careers. I sat across from her in the glass-walled conference room, watching other employees pretend not to stare through the transparent walls. My hand stayed steady on the armrests, though my pulse hammered against my ribs. 8 years as procurement manager at Horizon Medical Supplies, and this was how it ended. "Performance issues," Vanessa continued, sliding a document across the polished table. "Budget concerns. You understand how these decisions are made." I understood perfectly. 3 days ago, I'd walked into the supply warehouse unannounced and found Vanessa pressed against shipping pallets with Marcus Webb, owner of Webb Industrial Solutions, our largest vendor. They'd pulled apart quickly, but not before I'd seen his hand under her blouse, her wedding ring catching fluorescent light as she pushed him away. "This is about what I saw on Tuesday," I said quietly. Vanessa's perfectly composed expression cracked for just a second. "I don't know what you're talking about." But she did know. We both knew. The severance package she pushed toward me was too generous. 3 months' salary, extended health benefits, a glowing reference letter already prepared. Hush money wrapped in corporate efficiency. "Sign by end of day, and this can be smooth for everyone," Vanessa said, her manicured nails tapping the folder. "Fight it and things get complicated. We have documentation of your performance issues." Performance issues. I'd increased departmental efficiency by 37% over 3 years. Saved Horizon $2.4 million through strategic vendor negotiations. Won the Employee Excellence Award twice. My performance reviews sat in HR files with nothing but praise. But Vanessa Sterling was director of operations, married to the hospital board chairman, and politically untouchable. I was a department manager who'd seen something she shouldn't have. "I need time to review this," I managed. "Of course. Take until 5. Her smile didn't reach her eyes. "Claire, you've been valuable to Horizon. Let's part professionally." I walked out of that conference room with my career in ruins and Vanessa's threat hanging in the air like smoke. My office felt different when I returned. The photos of my daughter Zoe's soccer games, the coffee mug from the team building retreat, even my nameplate seemed to belong to someone else now. I had 6 hours to decide whether to fight or disappear quietly. My phone buzzed with a text from Beth, my assistant. "What happened?" "Everyone's talking." I didn't respond. Instead, I pulled up my work files, the procurement database I'd built from scratch, vendor contracts I'd negotiated personally, budget reports showing every dollar saved. Then I opened the folder marked Webb Industrial Solutions. Marcus Webb had been supplying medical equipment to Horizon for 2 years. His company wasn't the cheapest option. Not even close. I'd recommended 3 alternative vendors with better pricing, but Vanessa overruled me each time. "Relationship matters more than price," she'd said. Now I understood what kind of relationship she'd meant. The contracts showed something interesting. Webb Industrial's pricing had increased steadily over 18 months, but order volumes tripled. We were paying premium rates for supplies other vendors offered at 40% less. I started calculating. If Vanessa had approved contracts based on personal relationships rather than competitive pricing, Horizon Medical had overpaid by potentially millions. Corporate fraud wasn't just about stealing money. Sometimes it was about steering business to friends, lovers, or anyone offering personal benefits. My fingers moved across the keyboard, downloading files to my personal drive. If Vanessa wanted to destroy my career for witnessing her affair, I'd make sure the evidence of her corruption didn't disappear with me. 3 more hours until the 5 o'clock deadline. I printed everything. Contracts, pricing comparisons, email chains showing my recommendations for alternative vendors. Vanessa's written approvals overriding my suggestions. A paper trail documenting 18 months of questionable decisions that cost Horizon Medical hundreds of thousands annually. At 4:30, I walked back into HR with unsigned severance papers. Helen Carter, HR director, looked surprised to see me. "Claire, I thought you'd need more time." "I'm not signing," I said. And I'm requesting a formal review of my termination. Helen's expression shifted from surprise to carefully practiced neutrality. That's certainly your right. However, I should mention that pursuing formal review could affect your reference status and severance terms. The threat was subtle but clear. Sign and leave quietly or fight and risk everything. I understand, I replied. I'm still requesting the review. After I left HR, I drove to a FedEx store and mailed copies of everything I'd gathered to my personal address. Then I went home to my empty apartment and waited for Vanessa's next move. Came at 7 that evening. An email from Horizon's legal department demanding return of all company property, including any copied files or documents. They'd locked my work accounts remotely. My building access card would be deactivated by morning. They were moving fast to contain whatever damage I might cause. But they'd made one critical mistake. By terminating me so abruptly, they'd given me time to gather evidence before they realized how much I knew. My phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer. Claire Patterson. A man's voice, professional and cautious. This is Antoine Brooks from the Office of Inspector General, State Medical Board. I received an anonymous tip regarding financial irregularities at Horizon Medical Supplies. The tip mentioned your name as someone who might have information. My breath caught. Someone had already reported Horizon to state investigators. Who filed the tip? Ask carefully. Anonymous means I can't disclose that. But the allegations were specific enough to warrant preliminary inquiry. Would you be willing to discuss procurement practices at Horizon Medical? 20 minutes later, I had an appointment scheduled for Monday morning at the Inspector General's office downtown. Antoine Brooks explained that the investigation was confidential. If Horizon learned about it prematurely, evidence might disappear. Don't tell anyone you're speaking with us, he warned. Not friends, not family, not former colleagues. I hung up feeling something I hadn't felt since Vanessa's conference room dismissal. Oh, not hope that I'd get my job back. That ship had sailed. Hope that Vanessa Sterling's corruption might actually face consequences instead of being buried under corporate power and political connections. The weekend passed slowly. I took Zoe to her soccer game Saturday morning, pretending everything was fine while my mind raced through procurement records and contract details. Mom, you're not watching, Zoe complained after missing my reaction to her goal. Sorry, sweetheart. Work stuff. But it wasn't work anymore. I was unemployed, potentially unhireable if Vanessa spread the right rumors, and my daughter's college fund depended on finding new employment fast. Sunday night, I prepared for the Monday meeting like I was defending a dissertation. Every contract printed and organized. Every price comparison documented. Every email from Vanessa overriding my vendor recommendations highlighted. The paper trail told a clear story. Vanessa Sterling had steered millions in business to Marcus Webb's company over 18 months, ignoring better pricing from competitors, and then fired the employee who witnessed their affair. At 8 Monday morning, I walked into the Inspector General's office with 2 boxes of evidence and a determination that surprised even me. Antoine Brooks was younger than I'd expected, maybe 40, with sharp eyes that missed nothing as I spread documents across his conference table. Walk me through what you have, he said. I started with the affair. Brooks's expression didn't change, but he took detailed notes. Then I showed him the contracts. How Webb Industrial's pricing increased while competitors offered better rates. How Vanessa approved every Webb contract despite my documented objections. Here's where it gets interesting, I said, pulling out spreadsheets. Horizon Medical's equipment budget increased 43% over 18 months. But supply costs should have decreased due to market trends and bulk purchasing agreements. Instead, we paid premium rates to one vendor. Brooks studied the numbers in silence. Finally, he looked up. You built this entire analysis over one weekend. I've been tracking these discrepancies for months, I admitted. I just didn't realize why Vanessa kept overriding my recommendations until I walked into that warehouse. And she terminated you 3 days later. For performance issues. I couldn't keep the bitterness from my voice. Brooks leaned back in his chair, processing everything I'd presented. Claire, this is preliminary, but what you're describing could constitute several violations. Conflict of interest, bid rigging, possibly fraud if Marcus Webb's company provided kickbacks. Can you prove any of that? Yes. Not yet. But with your documentation, we have grounds for a full investigation. He paused. However, I need to be clear about something. This process will take months, possibly longer. Investigations move slowly. And there's no guarantee of specific outcomes. I understand. Also, if this goes forward, you'll need to testify formally. Vanessa Sterling's lawyers will come after your credibility. They'll examine every aspect of your work history, looking for ways to discredit you. I thought about Vanessa's fake sympathy in that conference room. About 8 years of dedication dismissed with manufactured performance concerns. About Marcus Webb's hand under her blouse while Horizon Medical paid inflated prices for his supplies. I'll testify, I said. Good. Then let's begin officially documenting everything you've brought me. The investigation launched quietly. Antoine Brooks explained that the Inspector General's office would conduct preliminary review before deciding whether to refer the case to law enforcement. Right now, we're gathering evidence and interviewing relevant parties, he said. Don't expect immediate results. I spent the next 2 weeks applying for jobs and trying not to obsess over what might be happening at Horizon Medical. Beth, my former assistant, texted occasionally with office gossip. Vanessa hired Marcus Webb's cousin as your replacement. Everyone thinks it's weird. That detail went straight to Antoine Brooks. Hiring a vendor's relative to manage procurement wasn't illegal, but it supported the pattern of inappropriate relationships between Horizon and Webb Industrial. 3 weeks after my termination, I got a job offer from Mercy General Hospital across town. Procurement coordinator, slightly lower title and salary, but stable employment. Accepted immediately. On my first day at Mercy General, the hiring manager mentioned that Horizon Medical had provided a surprisingly enthusiastic reference. Vanessa keeping up appearances, pretending my departure was amicable professional transition. I'd been at Mercy General for 4 weeks when Antoine Brooks called. We've completed the preliminary investigation. Can you come downtown tomorrow? His tone was carefully neutral, giving nothing away. I took personal time and met him at the same conference room where this had started. This time 2 other investigators joined us. Claire, we've spent 6 weeks examining contracts, financial records, and vendor relationships at Horizon Medical, Brooks began. What we found confirms your concerns, but goes deeper than the affair you witnessed. He opened a folder thick with documents. Marcus Webb's company received preferential treatment on contracts totaling $8.3 million over 18 months. We found evidence of bid rigging, where Webb had advance access to competitor proposals through Vanessa Sterling. How did you prove that? Yes. Email metadata. Vanessa forwarded confidential bid documents to Marcus Webb's personal email address 48 hours before final vendor selections. Webb Industrial consistently submitted proposals just under competitor pricing. The scope of the corruption was staggering. This wasn't just an affair leading to poor judgment. This was systematic fraud. There's more, Brooks continued. We traced unusual deposits to Vanessa Sterling's personal accounts. Over 18 months, she received $340,000 in payments from a consulting company that exists only on paper. That company's sole funding source is Webb Industrial Solutions. My breath caught. They'd found the kickbacks. Marcus Webb was paying Vanessa for steering contracts to his company, I said. Disguised as consulting fees, Brooks confirmed. Poorly disguised. The paper company has no employees, no office, no legitimate business activity. Just a bank account receiving money from Webb Industrial and transferring most of it to Vanessa Sterling's personal account within days. One of the other investigators, a woman named Patricia Cole, spoke up. We're referring this case to the State Attorney General's Office for Criminal Prosecution. Both Vanessa Sterling and Marcus Webb will likely face charges of fraud, bid rigging, and theft by deception. What about Horizon Medical? Yes. Are they cooperating? That's complicated, Brooks admitted. Hospital administration claims ignorance of Vanessa's activities. They're conducting their own internal investigation. Internal investigation. The words tasted bitter. Horizon would protect itself, distance the organization from Vanessa's crimes, claim they'd been victims too. They fired me to cover this up, I said quietly. The timing of your termination is part of our evidence, Patricia Cole replied. Vanessa Sterling eliminated the one employee who could expose her fraud. That's witness intimidation, potentially obstruction of justice. The meeting lasted 2 more hours. They needed formal statements, detailed timelines, every interaction I'd had with Vanessa regarding vendor contracts. By the time I left the Inspector General's office, exhaustion had settled into my bones. But underneath the fatigue, something else stirred. Vindication. 2 months ago, I'd been fired for witnessing an affair, dismissed as inconvenient and easily discarded. Now I was the key witness in a major fraud investigation that would destroy Vanessa Sterling's career and reputation the same way she tried to destroy mine. That evening, Zoe asked why I seemed distracted during dinner. Just work stuff, honey. Nothing to worry about. But it was everything. Everything I'd lost and everything I might help recover. The investigation moved faster than Antoine Brooks had predicted. Within 3 weeks, news broke that Vanessa Sterling had been placed on administrative leave from Horizon Medical. The official statement cited, ongoing review of procurement practices. No mention of fraud or criminal charges yet. Those details remained confidential while prosecutors built their case. But rumors spread fast. Beth texted me the day after Vanessa's leave was announced. Everyone knows something big is happening. Marcus Webb hasn't been seen at the hospital in weeks. What did you do? I didn't respond. The Inspector General had been clear about maintaining confidentiality. Then, 5 weeks after my initial meeting with Antoine Brooks, the story exploded. Former Horizon Medical Director charged with fraud, screamed the headline in the city newspaper. The article detailed everything. Vanessa Sterling and Marcus Webb faced multiple felony charges including fraud, bid rigging and theft. The investigation revealed $8.3 million in questionable contracts and $340,000 in kickback payments disguised as consulting fees. My name appeared in the 3rd paragraph. Former procurement manager Claire Patterson provided critical evidence that launched the investigation after being terminated from Horizon Medical in April. My phone started ringing within an hour of the article's publication. Former colleagues wanting details. Reporters requesting interviews. Antoine Brooks called to warn me that media attention might intensify. Vanessa Sterling's lawyers will try to discredit you publicly, he said. They'll claim you fabricated evidence out of revenge for being fired. Are you prepared for that? I wasn't sure I was prepared for any of this. But I'd come too far to back down now. The attacks started within days. Vanessa's attorney gave an interview claiming his client was innocent, that a disgruntled former employee had manufactured false allegations after being terminated for legitimate performance issues. Claire Patterson held a grudge against Ms. Sterling and exploited confidential information to pursue a personal vendetta, the lawyer told reporters. The truth will emerge during trial. I watched the interview on local news, feeling my face burn with anger and humiliation. They were trying to turn me into the villain of this story. Patricia Cole from the Inspector General's office called that evening. Ignore the media circus. We have documentation proving everything. Vanessa's lawyer is desperate. But the damage to my reputation felt real and immediate. Colleagues at Mercy General avoided me in hallways. My hiring manager called me into his office with uncomfortable questions about the Horizon Medical situation. Claire, I need to know if there's anything about this case that could reflect poorly on Mercy General, he said carefully. Are the allegations against you credible? I'm not being charged with anything, I replied. I'm the witness who exposed the fraud. I understand that. But the optics are complicated. Vanessa Sterling's team is painting you as someone who stole confidential information and fabricated evidence. I felt my career slipping away again, despite being on the right side of the law. Vanessa Sterling's connections and expensive lawyers were doing exactly what they'd been hired to do: destroy my credibility before trial. That night I called Antoine Brooks. "They're winning," I told him. "Vanessa's team is making me look like a disgruntled employee who made everything up. My new job is already questioning whether to keep me." "Claire, listen to me carefully," Brooks said. "This is temporary. When the case goes to trial, the evidence will speak for itself." "When does that happen?" I asked. "Trial could be 8 to 12 months away. These cases move slowly through the system. 8 to 12 months of my reputation being destroyed in the media, while Vanessa Sterling's lawyers painted me as a bitter liar. I might not have a career left by the time truth came out in court." The next morning I made a decision that would either save or completely destroy my professional life. I requested a meeting with prosecutors handling the case against Vanessa Sterling and Marcus Webb. "I want to testify publicly before trial," I told them. "Let me tell my side of the story while Vanessa's team is still claiming I fabricated everything." The assistant district attorney, a sharp woman named Kimberly Hayes, shook her head immediately. "That's not how this works. Witnesses don't give public statements before trial. It compromises the prosecution. Then my reputation gets destroyed while we wait months for your trial schedule," I replied. "I'm already losing my second job because of this." Kimberly studied me with calculating eyes. "There might be another option. We could arrange a press conference with the Inspector General's office. You'd make a statement, answer limited questions, and we'd present key evidence publicly." "Would that help?" I asked. "It would put pressure on Vanessa Sterling's defense team. Right now, they're controlling the narrative. A press conference shifts that balance." We spent the next week preparing. Antoine Brooks coached me on how to handle hostile questions. Kimberly Hayes reviewed every document we'd released to the media. And I practiced my statement until the words felt natural instead of rehearsed. The press conference was scheduled for a Wednesday morning at the Inspector General's office. I wore my best professional suit and tried not to think about the cameras that would broadcast this across local news. Antoine Brooks spoke first, outlining the investigation's findings. Then Kimberly Hayes presented evidence. Copies of contracts showing preferential treatment. Email metadata proving Vanessa forwarded confidential bid documents to Marcus Webb. Bank records documenting $340,000 in suspicious payments. Finally, it was my turn. I stepped to the microphone, feeling my daughter's encouragement from the night before. "Mom, just tell the truth. That's all you can do." I told the truth. About 8 years at Horizon Medical, about witnessing the affair, about being fired 3 days later with manufactured performance concerns. "I didn't come forward out of revenge," I said, looking directly into the news cameras. "I came forward because Vanessa Sterling and Marcus Webb defrauded Horizon Medical out of millions of dollars, and I had evidence proving it. They tried to silence me by destroying my career. Instead, I chose to expose their corruption." Questions came fast after my statement. Reporters shouted over each other, asking about details and timelines. One reporter asked the question I'd been dreading. "Ms. Patterson, Vanessa Sterling's attorney claims you stole confidential documents after being fired. How do you respond?" "I didn't steal anything," I replied carefully. "As procurement manager, those documents were part of my job responsibilities. When I was terminated without proper cause, I preserved evidence of financial irregularities. That's not theft. That's whistleblowing." Antoine Brooks ended the press conference after 20 minutes. As we left the podium, Kimberly Hayes pulled me aside. "That went well. You came across as credible and professional. Now we wait to see how Vanessa's team responds." They responded within hours. Vanessa Sterling's lawyer held his own press conference, calling my statements a carefully crafted fiction designed to deflect from Claire Patterson's own professional failures. But something had shifted. The local newspaper ran a follow-up story with the headline, "Whistleblower or Disgruntled Employee. Evidence Suggests Former Horizon Manager Exposed Real Fraud." The article detailed the bank records showing kickback payments, the email metadata proving Vanessa forwarded confidential bid information, and the timeline showing my termination came 3 days after witnessing the affair. Public opinion was turning. Social media exploded with people defending my actions. "She lost her job for doing the right thing," one comment read. "Vanessa Sterling should be in prison, not attacking her accuser." 2 days after the press conference, Mercy General's hiring manager called me into his office again. This time, his expression was apologetic rather than suspicious. "Claire, I owe you an apology. I should have trusted that you were telling the truth instead of worrying about optics. Does this mean I'm keeping my job?" "Yes. More than that. We're promoting you to Senior Procurement Manager. After watching your press conference, I realized we're lucky to have someone with your integrity on our team." The investigation continued building momentum through the summer. Vanessa Sterling and Marcus Webb both pleaded not guilty to all charges, but prosecutors kept finding more evidence. Additional vendors came forward reporting that Vanessa had pressured them to inflate pricing in exchange for contract approval. More bank records showed suspicious payments flowing through shell companies. And former Horizon Medical employees began testifying about procurement irregularities they'd witnessed but been afraid to report. I was deposed 3 times as prosecutors prepared their case. Each session lasted hours, with Vanessa's defense attorneys trying every tactic to discredit my testimony. They questioned my motives, my memory, my documentation methods. But the evidence spoke louder than their attacks. By September, Vanessa Sterling's legal strategy was collapsing. Her husband, the hospital board chairman, filed for divorce. Horizon Medical's internal investigation concluded that Vanessa had acted alone, without organizational knowledge, and the hospital reached a settlement with prosecutors. Marcus Webb's company declared bankruptcy, unable to survive the scandal and criminal charges. And I received a letter from the State Medical Board. "Dear Ms. Patterson, the State Medical Board recognizes your critical role in exposing fraud at Horizon Medical Supplies. Your actions prevented continued financial harm to healthcare institutions and upheld the integrity of public procurement processes. We are presenting you with the Healthcare Ethics Award in recognition of your courage and professional standards." The ceremony was scheduled for October. Zoe would be there, finally understanding why Mom had been so stressed for the past 6 months. My parents would fly in from Florida, and I'd stand on a stage receiving recognition for the same actions that had cost me my career just 7 months earlier. The irony wasn't lost on me. Before the award ceremony, though, came the moment I'd been waiting for since April. Vanessa Sterling's trial was scheduled for late September. I would be the prosecution's first witness. On the morning I was set to testify, I dressed carefully in a navy suit that projected professional competence without arrogance. I'd practiced my testimony with Kimberly Hayes until I could recite procurement details in my sleep. The courtroom was packed. Reporters filled the back rows. Former Horizon employees sat watching. And at the defense table, Vanessa Sterling sat with her expensive legal team. She looked smaller than I remembered. Less powerful. Her designer suit couldn't hide the stress lines around her eyes or the way her hands trembled slightly as she pretended to review documents. When my name was called, I walked to the witness stand with my head high. The oath felt ceremonial. "Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?" "I do." Kimberly Hayes began her questioning methodically. She walked me through my employment history at Horizon Medical, my responsibilities as procurement manager, my vendor selection process. Then she asked about Marcus Webb's company. "When did you first notice irregularities with Webb Industrial Solutions contracts?" "About 18 months before my termination. Their pricing was consistently higher than competitors, but my recommendations for alternative vendors were overruled by Vanessa Sterling." "Did you document your concerns?" "Yes. Every recommendation I made was documented in writing. Every override from Vanessa Sterling was documented in writing. I maintained detailed records. Kimberly entered my documentation as evidence. Hundreds of pages showing the paper trail of corruption. Then came the critical question. Ms. Patterson, please tell the court what you witnessed on April 12th. I took a breath and looked directly at the jury. I entered the Horizon Medical Supply warehouse around 3 in the afternoon. I wasn't expected to be there that day. When I opened the door to the storage area, I saw Vanessa Sterling and Marcus Webb in a compromising position. They were engaged in intimate contact. How did they react when they saw you? They separated immediately. Vanessa told me to leave. Marcus Webb didn't say anything. What happened 3 days later? I was called into a meeting and terminated for alleged performance issues. I was offered a generous severance package and told that if I signed immediately and left quietly, I would receive positive references. Did you sign? No. I requested a formal review of my termination, and I preserved documentation of the procurement irregularities I'd observed. Cross-examination was brutal. Vanessa's attorney spent 2 hours trying to paint me as vindictive, unreliable, and motivated by jealousy. But every attack fell apart against the documentation I'd preserved. Finally, after 3 days of testimony from multiple witnesses, the trial reached closing arguments. The jury deliberated for 6 hours. When they returned, Vanessa Sterling's face had gone pale. On the charge of fraud, how do you find? Guilty. On the charge of bid rigging, how do you find? Guilty. On the charge of theft by deception, how do you find? Guilty. Vanessa Sterling was sentenced to 6 years in prison and ordered to pay $8.3 million in restitution to Horizon Medical. Marcus Webb received 8 years and additional penalties for his role as primary contractor. I watched the sentencing from the courtroom gallery, feeling nothing like the victory I'd imagined. Mostly I felt tired. The Healthcare Ethics Award ceremony happened 2 weeks later. Standing on that stage with Zoe beaming in the audience and my parents crying with pride, I realized something important. Vanessa Sterling had tried to destroy my career to hide her corruption. Instead, she'd created the witness who exposed everything. Sometimes justice takes longer than we want. Sometimes the cost of truth feels impossibly high. But standing there with that award in my hands, knowing that my daughter watched her mother choose integrity over convenience, I understood that some battles are worth fighting regardless of personal cost. 8 months ago, I'd been fired for witnessing an affair. Today, I was the senior procurement manager at Mercy General Hospital, a recognized whistleblower, and proof that one person with documentation and determination could bring down corruption that seemed untouchable. Vanessa Sterling had underestimated the woman she'd tried to silence. That was her biggest mistake.